Hello loves, welcome back to the channel. My name is Duy Anh and I've been an IELTS instructor for 5 years in Vietnam. So recently I got a student who got a 9 in speaking, and I've been thinking about this student particularly and also reflect back on many other students of mine who also got like a very high band score in IELTS speaking, like a 7, 7.5, even an 8.5. And I do realize that they actually have things in common, and also my strategies for them that I helped them with also have something in common. So in today's video, I would like to share that with you guys. Hopefully that it can help you too. So first of all, I would like to say that I don't take like full credit for these successes. I do realize and acknowledge that there are other teachers and a lot of self-study involved as well. And it has a lot to do with their backgrounds, like their upbringing, the environment that they are, surrounded with, how many like native speakers or how much exposure to English that these students actually have. But actually, like these students, they like personally text me and thank me for my guidance and also for the tips that I helped them with. So I'm gonna, take a little bit of those credit, and I would like to share with you guys like what they have been, what I did to help them achieve such a high level of IELTS band score. So the thing with students that, got a 9 or like an 8 in IELTS speaking is that they have this level of comfort when it comes to the language. They are, pretty comfortable with like just using the language to communicate, right? So they can have like very easy daily conversation. They can express their feelings very well. And there's this level of naturalness in the word choices as well. And I think that's what differentiates them from the students who kind of like, they learn by heart, like certain expressions and vocabulary, and their answers sometimes sounds very rehearsed compared to, so this is just a very chill like chit chat video or like conversations happening in real time. But also that brings me to the first thing that I always have to kind of warn them about, is that sometimes they do not treat the IELTS test like a test, especially for the speaking one, but they treat it more like, like just chit-chatting with a native speaker, with someone who also speaks the language that you know how to speak. And that brings certain problems. So first of all, there is a time limit for your IELTS answer. I normally advise my students to go with like 20 to 25 seconds for part 1. For part 2, go to the full 2 minutes. And for part 3, ideally 45 to 60 seconds per answer. So because there is like this fixed time slot for your IELTS speaking test, you can't just like go on and on and on, So back to what I was saying, because they do have this level of comfort with the language, they actually know a lot of vocabulary and they use the language like on the daily basis. So in the test room in front of the examiners, sometimes they just talk, and it gets very long for them to actually get to the point. So my advice for them is always, okay, I get it that you know a lot and you would like to share a lot. And that is actually good for fluency because you don't want to, answer too shortly. But there is a limit time for each answer. So it would be better if they can, like impress, like use advanced grammar, natural vocabulary, and also even advanced lexical items within the time limit. So try to get straight to the point within like, the seconds that you kind of are allowed to talk about. So there's this problem, not just with like high level students, but also with, a lot of Vietnamese students actually, is that it took them very long time to actually get to the point. And when I first started my IELTS journey, also made the mistake. I think it has a lot to do with the root of the Vietnamese language. So we have this tendency to be very, I would like to use the word TikTok when we speak. So speeches like ngày hôm nay tôi rất vui và vinh dự hân hạnh khi được có mặt tại đây trước mặt quý vị để nói một điều là. So today I'm like extremely happy to be presenting myself in front of all of you, so that I can have this honor to deliver a message which is. So the important thing is what happens after the which is. Like, so what is the message? And sometimes speakers, especially like high level ones, they kind of forget that. And they just, like, they have this mentality that, oh, I have to flex my vocabulary, which is true sometimes. But because they can and because they are comfortable, again, so they just keep flexing, And that's when I told them, just get straight to the point and develop like from the answer onward. So go deeper instead of like going, like widespread with your answer. So another point that I had, which one of my students credited me for helping her, like achieving an 8.5, is that I kind of set, the mentality. So this is a test room, and in the test room, you should be able to speak like you're in a test, because again, it's still an academic test. It's not like daily conversation. So I think the word here is intention. So with whatever ideas or word choices or grammar that you're using, it needs to have like intention there. So whatever you're saying should be intentional within the few seconds or within the minutes that you are given for each answer. Don't just ramble, because you can, but try to like make everything more and more concise and to the point. So just answer what is being asked. However, timing aside, I honestly don't want my students to treat the test just like a test, because again, in order to get a band 9 or a band 8 above, there is a need to be natural. So this is something that another student actually credited me for. She told me that I helped her see the IELTS test not like a test, but it's more like a daily, like discussion about things in her life, actually. So yeah, what I meant with the first point is that we should be able to think about the time. So with this limited amount of time, I should be able to convey like fully what I meant and what like the answer is asking for. But on the other hand, we shouldn't, like learn things by heart. We shouldn't go with like, very repeated structures like here and there. And always speak from yourself. And I think that is what makes their answer stand out as well. So for like high level students, because they already have this huge amount of knowledge, not just about the language, but also about life in general. Most of them are very, in Vietnamese we say cá tính, and I would say they have like very specific hobbies and they like do love very specific things. What I do is I encourage them to talk about that, because again, they know about them, so they can show off their expertise in that field. For example, one student of mine, she loves rock music. And when it comes to the question, like, so what's your favorite genre of music? I wouldn't, advise her to go with like pop or, something that is like very common. And I asked her like, genuinely, what do you like? And she said rock. So let's talk about rock. And then she used words that even I myself don't know, because I don't listen to rock. So there are elements of the topic that only the person knows, and that was make them like an expert in that field. And for that, the answer has this level of depth and also a level of, oh, so this is something that I know. It's not just like very general answers it's really hard to set them apart from the rest of the candidates. So whatever that feel close to heart, first of all, it's more natural for you to talk about them, because you don't have to, like go search for ideas elsewhere. It's something you do every day. And secondly, it gives them a level of confidence that, oh, so I'm talking about something I'm very comfortable in, with the language that I'm also very comfortable in as well. So that kind of guarantees a higher success rate. So thirdly, I think it has a lot to do with pacing, because many students of mine who actually got a high band score, they actually have a problem with pacing, because once again, they are very comfortable with the language. So they just keep going, and at times you have to like pause them, and you have to like remind of chunking. And I think it's one thing that is it's kind of underrated, and also like, not many people focus on chunking in speaking, but personally for me, I find it very important. Because again, when it comes to speaking and even writing, I think my top priority that when I teach my students is that for them to be clear. So clarity is something that we should always bear in mind. So all the advanced grammar aside, or the advanced vocabulary aside, are your ideas clear, right? So besides the vocabulary and besides the ideas, what can you do to make yourself clear? So it has a lot to do with pronunciation. It's not just about how you pronounce the words and also the flow that the words go out, but also when you stop. And I think I demonstrated that pretty well in the beginning of this video. I always talk like this. I always teach like this with chunks of words. So chunking is like when to stop, and when to stop logically. At times you're going to speak very fastly, and there are other times that you just slow down and you enunciate on certain words. So there's this variation, the pacing in which you speak, that I think creates the naturalness of it all. Because naturally in real life, we don't speak at one pace and at one tone. There is like up and downs, there is like intonation, and we just like the speed just changes accordingly to what we are having to say, right? So I think I help two of my students with chunking a lot. I always told them, okay, slow down. You're going like Eminem, or it's like Megan Thee Stallion or something, and they just like keep speed running, all of the answers, because they can again comfort with the language. So that is when I have to step in and tell them that, okay, but this is a test, and we're not just here trying to impress people by speaking very fast or like using all these big words, but they are, they're trying to test your ability to make yourself sound very clear and to the point as well. That also brings me, I just thought of this, like maybe the fourth tip, something, is that try not to let people kind of stop you. And I think this is like a small trick that helps a lot with confidence. So imagine you're talking, right? And then the examiner have to interrupt you because you're going overboard or something. That is definitely gonna, affect your like confidence in the test room as well. So I often, suggest them to time your answer somewhat, to this like, obsessive, level. Like, okay, so this is 25 minutes. I will show up like a clock, and like, okay, and I'm gonna count down from 25 seconds, sorry. And by the time the clock hits like 0, they should be able to stop and like stop confidently and also get all of the points across, right? So this is like a lot of practice and timed practice actually. Because for like, let's just say like not so high level of English like students yet, the biggest struggle is that I don't know what to say, so their answers are pretty short. But for these like geniuses, their answers are too long. So the problem here is, okay, so how to maintain them within the time, so that nobody's going to interrupt you, and you can just finish your, like chains of thought perfectly within that time stamped. And it just creates like this very professional sounding, kind of speech. Like, okay, so I know when to end. I'm going to end it when I want to. And that is like within the time limit that I have. So instead of being like interrupted, instead of being, like stopped by other people, I'm going to, control. It shows like a level of, okay, I can control my content. I can control my speech, the speed, and yeah, it just shows that, okay, you're comfortable with the language, but you're also very on point, you're very like on track with what is being asked. Well, if you excuse me, all this talking makes me very hot. So I just removed my jean jacket. Okay, well, what was I saying? Okay, so the fifth, I would say, like strategy that I tell them, this one mostly apply for part 3. So for part 3, I tell my students to treat it like a writing task 2 kind of question, because they are very similar, right? What I meant by that is that when you write, you're going to have ideas, and then you're going to explain like why do you have such idea. You're going to give examples, and there should be a conclusion as well. So it's like a full production. It's like a completed thought process, that it has like a beginning and an end. So for speaking, sometimes like for part 1, let's say, you don't actually need a conclusion. You just have to answer the question and just leave it there. But for part 3, if you want to be clear, and if you want to show that, okay, so I do have a level of control and, depth in my thoughts, you should be able to, tackle the question fully, like an essay, like with a beginning, with the body, and with a conclusion. Because when you think about part 3 questions, most of the time they are like open-ended questions, right? They are just, it's not just like yes or no, like it's not just like one answer is accepted, but it's more like, okay, so let's discuss this. So what do you think? And for students of high level, sometimes their problem is that they do have a lot of ideas, but none of the idea is like fully exploited, so it's just like listing out ideas. And my strategy for them is, okay, so think about writing as well. I don't think listing out a lot of ideas would help you a lot in writing task 2, right? So for speaking, even though you can list out ideas, especially on questions that you just don't have any, examples or knowledge about it, that is acceptable. But if like my personal take on the matter would be like, okay, so choose one idea, one interesting idea, and it should be something that you fully believe in and go very deeply with it. Right? So let's say they ask for like a solution for like air pollution, for example, and instead of like listing out a lot of things with like traffic, with planting trees, with electric car and stuff like that, a student can just talk about like the fact that people are burning trash, in the open air. And so what can we do about that? How is that harmful? And in that case, they can use a lot of words in terms of like chemicals and reactions and stuff like that. So yeah, go deep and treat it like a writing one with a full explanation. I think that would always help. And examples, I cannot, emphasize enough the importance of examples. If you want to get a high band score, you need to take examples and just don't make things up, Like, I think the best examples are those who is like kind of undeniable, like it's already out there and you're just like citing them. Like, for example, this student of mine, she talks about how schools kind of judge, like university, they judge students' ability based on the report paper solely, and sometimes like not really seeing the true potential. And the example is that in Vietnam, many universities recruit by, taking a look at the students' academic report. That's what they call học bạ, set học bạ, right? And personally, I think that is one perfect example for the idea, because it is already happening out there, right? It is a fact. So yeah, a quality example can really help your ideas came across way easier than just like keep explaining things in circle. And while we're on the topic of, let's say, writing, I just thought of this, that I teach all of my students, not just like high-level ones, but the high-level students, they kind of do this pretty well, hence the results, is that there's a reason why the IELTS speaking is asked in topics, right? So when they're asking you about, let's say, cooking or art, they're kind of expecting you to talk about things that you know within the topic. So this is where the topical vocabulary or topic-specific vocabulary comes into play. And a problem with very high-level students is that because they are, once again, comfortable with the language, they can just answer any kind of question, like even if it's like a question about robots, they do still have words to talk about it, but are those words topic specific? Since sometimes it's a no. Let me give you an example. This is an example that I always take in all of my IELTS classes. So the question is like, do you like cooking, right? So an answer can go like this. So, like, how often do you cook, or do you like cooking? Oh, I actually am very busy. I'm occupied with work and children. I'm like juggling between 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. So I honestly don't have time for such activity. So that answer is actually okay. It answers the question like, no, I don't usually cook and I don't really like it. And there is a reasoning for it. There is an advanced vocabulary as well, like juggling between 3 jobs or make ends meet. However, as you all know, especially for part 1, if the question is about cooking, then the following questions will also be about cooking. It's gonna be like, oh, so who normally does the cooking in your house, or what is your favorite dish to cook, something like that, because questions are asked in topics. So my other tech would be would be for my students to try to use more topic specific vocabulary for an answer, even if it's a yes or a no. So another way to answer that would be, honestly, I really don't have time to be in the kitchen. I'm working 3 jobs and I have kids as well. So you can imagine I don't have time to prepare the ingredients, let alone learning new recipes. On the way home, I'm just gonna order something. So with that answer, there are like, I would say 4 topic specific words, which is like recipe, kitchen, ingredients, and ordering on like app or food delivery services. So yeah, because like the small unit that creates a speech are words, right? So words make up sentences and sentences make up speech and paragraphs. So with the words choices, be more strategic again. Choose the words that shows that, okay, so this person knows about the topic and is comfortable talking about the topic. Because the more specific it is, again, the less generic it sounds. Think about the first answer that I had, right? I'm busy, I'm working 3 jobs, I don't have time for it. That answer can be used for questions like, so, like, do you play sport at the weekend? Do you enjoy reading? How often do you go to the cinema, right? So it's all like, oh, I'm busy, so I don't do those. You see, it's very generic. Oh, and one last thing, I just remembered. Be careful with your emotion as well, because again, clarity. Of course, express your emotions, right? So if you're talking about something that is exciting, show that excitement. If you're talking about something that is kind of boring or like negative, you can show your concerns. You can show how a little bit of discomfort as well in your speech. But one thing with like high-level students is that at times they can be too emotional. Again, being very comfortable with the language. Maybe they use it like on a daily basis with their friends. So in the test room, they kind of treat the examiner like one of their friends, and they just emote a little bit too much. So sometimes like sudden changes in the pacing and also in emotions, again, makes yourself unclear. So you would want to balance it out, like there are still emotions here and there, but mostly try to stay like kind of like neutral and not anything extreme, like to be like too happy and then too sad, because it also affects how the people listen to you. Right, so if you just switch moods like all of the time, and also like you speak normally and then you suddenly speak very fast and then you slow down, the variation is needed. But if you do that too extremely, again, it's not clear. All right, so just keep in mind, you want to sound clear. Everything leads back to clarity, and I think that is what helps my student, like achieve very high band score. I never doubted their, language ability, or like grammar structure or like vocabulary. At times, they even have like better ideas than me. They know more than I do, and their word choices are like excellent. But I believe that with like correct guidance, there are still things that you kind of need experience for. So as someone who sit the exams a few times and helped many, achieve their band score, those are the tips that I can give my students. And I'm very happy to see that they actually got very high band scores. Yay! So it's a win for all of us. So congratulations to the students, to the parents, to all the teachers involved in the journey, to myself. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I was just thinking and reflecting about my students last night, out of excitement and, joy, of course, because, think about it. My student got a 9 in speaking. It's kind of, incredible. And the kids, they work so hard, and, kudos to them. So if you like the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully more IELTS related content in the future. And if you have comments, discussion, ideas, opinions, please comment down below. I'm very happy to talk about this. So goodbye.